I actually took Peter's demand that we stick with 15 minutes seriously. I'm not going to extemporize. I'm going to actually read, but I'm actually not even going to tell you all that much. I'm going to show you something that I've been working on with a group of activists in Vancouver for the last 5 years. And it's really an alternative to the way we do elections. So I'm going to preface it with a few comments, and then I'm going to go and see if we can see it on the big screen here. So first thing I should say, even before I say anything, is that I'm grateful to Peter and to Howard for organizing this event and for inviting me. But I have to say that I'm not sure that I belong here. Not sure because I think that constitutional democracy, representative democracy, liberal democracy, participatory, deliberative, however you want to call it, are at best harbingers and at worst excuses for the real thing. In my vocabulary, in my conceptual hygiene, I don't use the word democracy to describe the system we're in. I think we're too good to ourselves. I think we may be trying hard, but at most, I think what we have before us is something akin to a democratic representative system. The emphasis is on representation, not on democracy. I don't think that when you look back at the founders of our system, either in the United States or here, you would, in the United States, for example, the word democracy does not appear in the Constitution, nor does it appear in the Constitution here, except later in the Charter. It was not designed as a democracy, and I think we do ourselves a disservice by calling it a name that doesn't yet belong to it. In any case, in my view, democracy means that it doesn't mean, let's say, put it this way, it doesn't mean power to some people, that some people have the power all the time, or that all the people have the power some of the time, that is in elections, but really it means that all the people have the power all the time. Now, I've said this to other audiences, and usually people start rolling their eyes and thinking, well, that's utopian. But in fact, what it is a design parameter. When we sit down and we design for the future system, not the one that we're in right now, what we have to keep in mind is that ideal. We need a system that allows all the people to have the power all the time. And if we compromise on that at the design stage, which is what the founders did, we end up with a representative system that's now in stress. Are we all in stress, by the way? Are we all sufficiently stressed? So that's the first thing to keep in mind, that the idea of power, that all the people should have the power all of the time, is a design parameter rather than a dream and a utopian vision. Second thing I want to say is that the system that we have in place, whether you call it liberal or representative or constitutional or whatever, makes a mockery of our demand for an informed citizen. When election campaigns are fought on a single issue, and given that more recently campaigns are fought on the basis of issues like a buck of beer or lock her up, there's no reason for me to be informed. On the contrary, the more informed, the more disappointed, saddened, enraged I am at the ballot booth, Jean-Pierre. If you tried it out, you would see. You come, you're informed, you have all kinds of ideas, and then you get to vote on either for or against the buck of beer. The kids ask, why aren't we feeding cattle seaweed? It reduces carbon monoxide emission by some 30%. Why don't we lace the oceans with iron filings, which reduce the electromagnetic charge hurricanes require? Why do we keep expanding nuclear arsenals? Why is higher education not free? The kids are informed, educated, but the system mocks and frustrates them. When you are asked, as I say, when you are asked to put your thumbprint on a ballot, it makes a mockery of all that you have between your ears. Third thing I want to say has to do with heroic times, our times and the opportunities we have before us. When we were settling this country, and for a long time afterwards, we needed to commit to a division of labor. But as time goes on, the big infrastructure work is either done or can be done by robots and machines, which it will be done by. We will soon be at a time when we, like the ancient Greeks, will have a slave class to labor for us. But that slave class will not be other people, hopefully, but metal and motherboards. This will free up time, and rather than play golf 24/7, which is not a bad idea, I believe that the time freed up should be used to engage in all that living in a robust democracy means. I want to now show you what, in my view, how we would vote in a much more robust system. Okay, so now I don't know how I can see. I think can I take this out? Oh, it's there. Okay, so can I still take this out? Because I do want to take a look at what's going on here, because the clicking has to be done from above. So if you click for a second on education, imagine this is a ballot. Okay, you're coming into a ballot booth. Okay, so just now scroll down. That's just a little bit of a... Okay, stop here. So we have the first question here. Now, let me just even preface that by saying that what we're modeling here is the idea of voting on issues rather than on candidates, okay? So we're breaking down the issues, and we are voting on one issue after another. This election does not have to happen in an hour. It can happen over a space of a month or 2 months, and it requires much more information than we require of any citizen today. But you would come into the ballot booth, or you might do this online, depending on security issues. The first, I just took a number of issues that came up in the last election, didn't come up, but should have come up in the last election here in Ontario. So the question reads, sex education should be mandatory in all grades 1 to 12. You can click somewhere. Neutral, okay. Is that how you feel about it? Okay, now let's scroll down. Okay, now I want to point out something here. This is not a referendum. This breaks down the issues into their subcategories. So if we apply the same logic to Brexit, for example, it wouldn't be a yay or nay. A question may be, should we, I mean, you'll excuse us because I'm not an expert in British government, but imagine a question that says, well, every new immigrant into the UK will get a 4-year work permit, and will be assessed from there. So you break down the 30, 40, 50 issues that were all collated, consolidated in the yay or nay vote, and you don't get that kind of populist business where the entire country is divided into two, the yay and the nay. So I'm doing the same thing with sex education. we're not asking the voter to vote yes, we should have sex education in schools, or nay. I'm breaking it up into a variety, and I've only given you 4 options. There might be 15. Okay, so here again, so the next question, sex education should be optional in elementary grades, 1 to 6. Truly opposed, okay? Let's go, keep scrolling down. Okay, parents' input into sex ed. Parents may request that certain subjects not be taught in sex education classes. Again, we choose something neutral, okay? You go down one more. Is there one more, or is that it? Oh, we have a space for your thoughts, and there's also a possibility for adding your own option. Now, the way that this ballot works is if you have an option, it comes first offline, and you need, like the Swiss, I think you need about 100,000 supporters for it to become part of the ballot in the election going forward. Okay, so let's go. Can we go from here to next? Here again, another issue, class sizes, okay? So the statement reads, in order to decrease class size, I'm prepared to increase my tax contribution by the following amount. Now this is, again, a different way of voting. It's not like I want smaller classes or larger classes. It's kind of making people understand that there's a cost to it. These numbers are based, some accountant did a little bit of arithmetic to figure out how from the $2,800 or so that come off your taxes for education in Ontario, I think that was the Wing government, how much you would have to add in order to decrease sizes back to 22 from the 28 where our premier has now pitted class size. So here you see, if you move the cursor a bit, you press, let's start at 70 for argument's sake. So if you were prepared to contribute another $70 to your current tax burden, you can lessen the class size across the board to 27. Okay, if you choose if you are prepared to add another $280 to your burden, you can actually get back to the 22 where we were before the ostensible tax cuts. Now, this is really problematic when you start looking at budgets and where the money is coming from, where it's not coming from. In fact, the way in Ontario, the way in which much of the school budget was cut was by cutting cap and trade. And cap and trade, the revenues from cap and trade actually paid for much of what the school boards use for other purposes. That's where the revenue went. So when you cut cap and trade, which, by the way, I don't know anybody that voted for the premier that knew, well, a lot of us suspected that he would cut cap and trade, but that actually had thought through that option to the point where we knew that if he cut cap and trade, this would directly affect the school budgets. We just didn't know that. It was not, he didn't say anything, it wasn't in the papers, and even if it was, it went over most people's heads, and it actually wasn't. Okay, let's go down again. Okay, so here, again, you get to add your thoughts next. This is school repairs. Okay, so here's a little bit of a background. The average age of Toronto School Board buildings is 63 years. Repair backlog is as follows. Urgent is $870 million, high $2 billion, medium $700 million, low $280. Again, if you just scroll over to decision support, just so you understand a little bit more about this ballot. Here, people will come to this thing, they don't have a background, they don't know much about it. You can go to more information, you can go to expert opinions, which you can trust or distrust, of course. You can watch the videos, you can go to a chat room, which is, a whole bunch of people screaming at a whole bunch of other people, and discuss it there. It's important to realize that in order to establish this kind of ballot, the whole system has to realign itself. So you would like the schools, now in this new system, what you're actually educating people toward is to become decision makers. What we're actually saying is, look, the state of our schools, the state of our environment, the state depends on you. It's not a handing over of a conversation once every 4 years so that they'll have it. Remember Madison's words, they asked Madison back in 1776 whether America was going to be a democracy, and he said in small spots. And the small spots he meant was in the Congress and in the Senate, where we have the conversations. So every 4 years, we're asked to hand over our right to conversation and to decision-making to this representative or that representative, and by that we absolve ourselves. We're ready to go back to whatever our lifestyle is. In the new model, we are the decision makers itself. We are the decision makers, which means that I will take the bus or the subway to Mississauga and discuss with some guy who thinks that we should cut cap and trade because he's a decision maker. Also think about how difficult it is to lobby 17 million people. It's pretty easy to lobby a minister, even a government, but to lobby 17 million people who are actually the decision makers, and to lobby them on each of these issues. I don't even think the Koch brothers can do that. Okay, so let's go look at the options. So here, there's one option is schools should be allowed to negotiate non-unionized repair workers. If you walk into schools today and you ask the principal, why is the banister loose, she'll tell you, and I've been told this, she'll tell you it's really expensive. And it's really expensive because she's forced to use union labor. This is a difficult choice because in a way it says schools should have some way of negotiating with the unions. And if they don't, I'll tell you when this will happen, after the first death of a student. So far, the $100 million was cut out of school repairs. When is it going to be starting to come back? When the first kid falls down the elevator shaft. And that's absolutely unfortunate, but that's what's going to happen. You can mark my words for it. If you look around at schools, if you go to schools, you'll see that there is repairs that if they're not done, it's a catastrophe in waiting. But we're going to sit here until somebody actually dies. Okay, so let's go on. Okay, here's, pardon me? I can't hear you. Okay, one more example and that's it. So here you have parents in state of school. Parents should be formally informed of school building repair. Again, you oppose, you don't oppose. You go to your decision support or you don't. Let's go right to the end. How do we do that? Just keep going next. You can see there's a lot of work and a lot, for a citizen to take this thing up really has to educate themselves because they are now the decision. Okay, I can show you a lot more about how the algorithm works, how there's a horse trading aspect to this thing in the sense that if this is really important for you and this is not important, the algorithm will trade one or another. But the way we do this thing, the way we calculate this thing finally is still up in the air. What I'm trying to show you here is a concept that moves away from representative government. Now, what happens? I'm going to give you one more word, and then I'm going to give you back the mic. What happens over time is that first, at the end of this kind of process, which might take months, we have what I call a people's platform. And once we have a people's platforms, then we elect managers. There's no politicians in the system. What we're electing is inspired managers that can implement the platform that we want. So the entire system changes. And I guess, is that enough? You have enough of a concept? Thank you.